Hello there. I wrote a post on Facebook about reading a, a Stanislaw Lem science fiction story called His Master's Voice. I read it because I read two of his other stories that I thought were very, very good. One of them was obviously Solaris, and the other one was called The Invincible. I loved them both, really terrific stories. This new story, His Master's Voice, the subject was something that really gripped me from the start when I read the introduction to it, because I was looking for another book of his to read, and it was called His Master's Voice, and it's about a group of scientists that are brought together to decipher a message from outer space, something from an extraterrestrial intelligence, a sentience of some sort that is sending a message like across space. And the American government has got this team of scientists together. The problem is it's written in first-person narrative as a memoir by a character called Peter Hogarth. And I think this character of Peter Hogarth is really Stanislaw Lem in his own way, trying to imagine himself on a project doing this sort of thing. He comes across as a pretty dour sort of man who's not got a very high opinion of a lot of the people that are working around him, doesn't have a very high opinion of the population, the majority of the population that don't share his interests. I can't help thinking that the character within the book has a sort of a conviction of his own vanity. And I'm coming at this as a person who works for the council and empties dog bins for a living. So there is a bit of a difference here. You've got to understand I'm sort of one of these insects that's trying to understand something high up and mighty. And to be fair to Stanislaw Lem, he's saying that this group of scientists, including himself, who he seems to have a high opinion of, as this Peter Hogarth, they're like little insects trying to understand something that's far beyond their reach. Stanislaw Lem tends to write science fiction about the difficulties of communicating with an extraterrestrial intelligence that doesn't think the same way as we do. Like you could see it in the story of Solaris, you could see it in the story of The Invincible with the swarm of nanite type things that are this big collective intelligence. So he has some great ideas, and this come across as a great idea. And it's really what hooked me to wanted to read this story in the first place. You know, he has good ideas and he asks great questions, and I'm with him. You know, I could see, there's things beyond our understanding, especially a man who empties dog poo bins like myself, right? But likes reading your good sort of story that takes you out there a bit. Because this is written as a first-person narrative and as a memoir, it's like a textbook. And when I was a kid, I always remember this geography teacher, this retired geography teacher named Mr. Seaver, that used to give us some horrid lessons in geography, and we couldn't ask him no questions because he just used to ramble on about confectionery industries and coal mining industries, you know, all up and down the country, and it used to get tedious, and he used to be very irate with us as his pupils that if he thought we weren't listening because we were drifting off. And the way this story is presented, it gets a bit like that, and it really is hard to stick with this story. But I managed to do it, but I think I only understood about 10% of it. It goes into philosophical things about, obviously, philosophy, cosmology, epistemology, I probably pronounced it wrong, biology, system theory, information theory, probability, evolutionary theory. And it's like written in this textbook memoir thing as all this team are getting together to try and find what this message is about from the cosmos. And it got so bogged down with it, and obviously people that understand these sort of things will get into it, but you're trying to appeal to a very wide audience if you want to write a good story. And the concept is really, really good. You know, it's a smashing story, but from the word go, this is not a spoiler, from the word go, you know the project fails. Because you're told at the beginning that the project has failed, and this is the man's memoirs about that failure of a project. It starts off by telling you how they acquired the project, because the American government wanted to keep it a secret while they had all these scientists out in one of these desert compounds in America somewhere to do all these experiments and things. So they actually get it off of this character who's a bit like David Icke or Eric von Däniken, that has all these wonderful theories, 4 or 5 of them a year. So they can en bloc discredit loads of his theories to get this one little theory as something they've debunked, and then take it away and secretly work on it because there's some sort of merit in it, but they don't want the public to know. So that's how that's how the setup goes. But you've had to read several chapters of all this dialogue and all this analysing of people as this sort of textbook memoir. It isn't like people having a chat in a boardroom saying, we've got to get this, we've got to get that. There's no sense of drama to it. It's just like this catalogue of a classroom thesis and all that. It's not it's a hard sell, and it's hard to stay with this, but because the end goal was this extraterrestrial intelligence message to decipher, I thought, we've got to get somewhere with it. And he's called in late to the project when some of the people have all of this group out in the desert. This Peter Hogarth is called in late to put his own. He's a master of mathematics. He's a mathematician. So he's going in with all these other types of scientists, ologies everywhere, all types of ologies, to do this thing. And when he arrives there, they've been able to use some of the data from the message. They've managed to understand certain things of it, and they've managed to synthesize a substance they call frog's eggs, which is a type of colloid, a liquid with all these little sediments in, a stable colloid. So all the sediments are all in the right place. They ain't all sinking to the bottom. I don't know for what reason that they've done this. And the other thing is what they call is Lord of the Flies, which is a lump of rotting meat in a bell jar bombarded with some rays of something or other with insects inside to see how they react. And I don't know whether they was using this to try and decipher the message, or they'd made it from some sort of deciphering of the message, but I couldn't understand the reason why they'd done it. And as they're continuing to elaborate and build around these projects, which is one frog's eggs, the colloid, and the other one, which is Lord of the Flies, the rotting thing I don't know, I get the impression that it was in a big bell jar in a laboratory somewhere, and to see how it reacts with insects. As they're doing all of this, they can't find anything more out, and when they get anywhere near to making something, they're not sure whether they're not sure whether they're making some sort of bomb or something. Is it something that can blow up and destroy them? And this project goes on for about 3 years, but it's all this memoir stuff. Sometimes the bloke Peter Hogarth writing the memoirs telling you in depth of how he dislikes this particular scientist, or how he has respect for this type of scientist, and what they might think of him. And it's just like a very, very difficult thing to stay with. And basically after 3 years, the American government is brought in and they have a big discussion, and it's decided they must abandon the project. And all of the other people involved in the project, including this Peter Hogarth, they all sign off of it in sort of like in disgust or in protest, because they're not getting anywhere with it. And basically that's the end. I'm thinking, because I'm not being funny, it's not a spoiler, because that's going to happen. You're told from the start that the project fails, so somewhere along the line there's going to be a close down of the project, because you've set up for it in the first place. And the whole concept of the story was very, very good, but it was just made so difficult because of this theory and all this type of technical scientific chatter, and I just couldn't grasp how they were progressing, what they were actually doing to try and decipher this message. if they're trying to decipher a message and they fail, yet through the message they've deciphered how to do this frog's eggs experiment and this Lord of the Flies experiment, how have they failed in that way? Or is it these type of experiments somehow help them decipher the message? And I couldn't see the connection of what was going on. I liked the story in the sense of I liked the concept of what it was about, but it was just the way it was presented. I just thought it could have been made a little bit more simplistic for the reader. I mean, that's a bit fresh, I know, coming from a man who empties dog poo bins for the council for a living. But I would have liked, I would have liked to have been able to grasp a little bit more of it. It was all. I mean, I like Stanislaw Lem. I think he asked some great questions, and he had some great ways of putting what would be wrong with trying to talk to an extraterrestrial intelligence that's nothing like we are and doesn't have our values as human beings, but has a completely different set of values. So he asks all those questions, and you get that, and I could get the crux of this is that certain things are beyond our understanding and we are not advanced enough to be able to decipher this cryptic message. I wasn't advanced enough to understand all of the way this story was presented, but then like that's how it goes, I suppose. But yeah, if you're a Stanislaw Lem fan, then I would give this a go, because it is good, but God, it does take a little bit of concentration. I actually learned more about the plot of the story, because as I'm reading this, a lot of it, the words are becoming like white noise to me. You know, I'm reading the things, but they're not registering. And every now and then I'm getting these words crop up that I'm having to go and look up. And then when I understand them, that's fair enough, but I can't understand the context within the story. Like when I looked up colloid, I could understand what a colloid meant. And then I'm looking at this colloid substance or solution on the table of a laboratory, and I'm thinking, what's that got to do with deciphering this message? How, if they can't decipher the message, have they deciphered how to make this colloid from the message? So I'm sort of like running around messed up, and the Lord of the Flies bit with the meat in the jar, have they got this, deciphered this from the message, or is it in some ways helping them to decipher the message? I was just totally at a loss, but I knew what the end goal was, to decipher this message. And I really wanted to know so much more about it, and probably learnt a little bit more by reading reviews of the story written by other people that understood it probably a little bit better than I did. I think I learnt more from the reviews of other people concerning this novel than what I did actually reading it. I could understand the beginning with all the charlatan conspiracy theorist people putting the little things in their magazines and peddling all these things about, you know, like chariots of a god and all that, and people debunking them, saying this is all rubbish, that's all rubbish, and that's how they get all the tapes for this message from one of these people that does these David Icke or Eric von Däniken type of presentations to the media to get people interested in these conspiracy theories and things. So they rescue this thing that they think has the American government rescues it and has some sort of merit and decides they're going to investigate this. I could understand all of that, but it was just this really deep theory all of the time, and I wasn't sure whether this Peter Hogarth is actually a Stanislaw Lem having a moan about the human race in general and their overinflated opinion of themselves. I suppose there is merit in that as well, but God, it was a hard sell, and I think I learned more about it, as I said, by reading other people's reviews after I'd struggled through this. I like the concept of the story. I just thought it could have been written in a better presenting way. You know, maybe people, even if they were in the canteen at the complex doing the experiments in the canteen, having a chat with each other over a cup of coffee, saying, we've done this ology, we've done that ology, we've done this experiment, we've done that experiment, interacting with dialogue in that sort of way, I think it would have carried better. But instead you've just got this script of a memoir written by a dour man who seems to be cross with everyone around him and doesn't have much faith in the first place. But again, it was still a good story, and if you're a Stanislaw Lem fan, then yeah, read it, but be prepared to struggle a little bit. Even if you're a university chemist qualified, I think you're still going to struggle with a lot of this, but it's a good, it's Stanislaw Lem, and he thinks deep, he thinks hard, and it was interesting, I would say. I can't really say it was really good, but it was very interesting, and it has had a little bit of an influence on me in the much as I think I would like to do a story of someone very basic trying to talk to someone, sending a message from outer space, but I don't think I would involve all these scientific things. I find myself going back in history and thinking about something like a Hibernian monk from the Hibernian missionaries up in Cumbria or Scotland somewhere, lighting a fire at night and looking up to the skies and seeing some light formation send messages. And then he tries to decipher messages by sending things back in a more simplistic sort of way, like fire and light messages during the night. I'm thinking you probably get more out of an idea of trying to converse with someone with a different mindset or an alien mindset than anything else, because you could imagine the Hibernian monk looking at it from a Christian godly point of view, looking up at the heavens, and you could understand the mistakes he's making to this light thing that's probably of a better intelligence. It's just that way is a good way that it's influenced me. It's influenced me in that way. So anyway, Stanislaw Lem, his master's voice, is a very interesting read, to put it mildly. Go for it if you're a Stanislaw Lem fan, and you've got to really stick with it. Have a good time.